Today we are going to talk about the Islamic philosophy and its applications in education. So really, when we talk about Islamic education, very important thing for us to distinguish between Islam as a religion and Islamic philosophy as the work of Islamic philosophers and thinkers. So it's really very important for you guys to distinguish that we are not talking about Islam as a religion, but the interpretation of those Islamic philosophers of what are some ideas, what are some principles that we should view or look at education through an Islamic perspective and Islamic lens. Therefore, those philosophers actually had three ways of looking at them, and that's not to confuse you, but it depends on the person's view of the world. There are some people who are more religious and conservative and believe that we should interpret, everything in life, including education, within the boundaries of Islam as a religion, and focus on these a lot, like Al-Ghazali. And so any explanation that you will have will be very thoughtful, will very linked to Islam and Sunnah and Hadith and all of that. Then you have people like Ikhwan al-Safa and other philosophers who studied the Greek philosophies and thought about the role of rationality and how rationality affect thinking, and what role can education play in developing individuals and developing the communities out of ignorance and out of the problems that they face. Though there are a lot of these people like Ibn Rushd, Ibn Tufail, Al-Bayruni, Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, and other people. So the last one is actually looking at a more pragmatic perspective. Really, how can we today use education to solve the ongoing problems of the Islamic community, and really be a little bit more pragmatic in the way that we use education, like Ibn Khaldun. So it's linking it more towards work, education and work, and education and development of society, and so forth. As any philosophy, when we look at philosophies, we look at metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology. So let's look at metaphysics from an Islamic perspective. This is really the most fundamental question, because when we talk about metaphysics, we talk about Islam as a religion. So it's gonna reflect the religious points of view of Islam. So what is Islam as a religion? What is Islam as a religion? The testimony of faith. الإيمان بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله تعالى. This is the most fundamental. If you don't believe in all of these, then you're not Muslim, right? So the first one is believing in Allah as the creator of the universe and the only creator of the universe. So Muslim philosophers explain that, if there was more than one creator, then maybe there are going to be some contradictions or conflictions in the way that the universe works. But there is always harmony, there's consistency, there is purpose for everything that Allah created, and the things in the universe, there is interdependence, they depend on each other, so they complete each other, sort of. We as Muslims, of course, also believe that universals exist before things. What does that mean? It really means that the universe was created before the human beings, and it's not going to end with us believing, or it will not be affected, like you've seen from idealists, if we recognize that the universe is there or not. So what is our role as individuals, as humans in this universe? Of course, I know probably you've heard about this when you were studying in secondary school, or before that Islam looks at humans as vicegerent of Allah, Khalifatullah fil ard, insan Khalifatullah fil ard. So what is that insan, or like a human being, or that vicegerent should do? Really, man is there to submit to Allah and worship Allah, and worship is probably the most important and fundamental, aspects in Islam. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْإِنسَ وَالْجِنَّ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, right? So, and also that recognition that everybody is born on that fitrah that we call in Islam, which is the recognition that there is Allah and God that created all universe, and it's imprinted in all the souls of Adam's descendants. And so when we then really look at the relationship between man and the universe, we're looking at something as harmony. Man is supposed to develop the universe to يعني the hadith that says لو قامت القيامة وبيد أحدكم فسيلة فليغرسها. Then therefore really we are looking at harmony between man and the universe, and development of that universe to the utmost potentials. Really Islam is the religion that provides ways for humans to be committed, to be pure, to be happy, to be peaceful, and so forth. So by obeying Allah, hopefully individuals can achieve all of these objectives. Then if we look at what kind of knowledge are we expecting in Islam, or how does Islam look at knowledge? Knowledge is really the totality of life. We're not only looking at spiritual or intellectual knowledge, we're looking at both the religious and the intellectual knowledge. Therefore, man is both mind, body, and spirit. So it's not only the spiritual aspects that we care about. When we look at values are like any other religion or religious philosophy. Values are eternal, they don't change, they are absolute. For example, honesty is the same value. It will not change, it didn't change, and it will continue to be there. And there are so many values. Of course, values, when we look at them, values for the individuals, and also ethics when the individual deals with other members in society. So both should be respected and practiced. Before we talk about Islam as and its role or effect on education, I'd like to take a little bit of time and talk about the principles that guide that understanding. And those principles here that you can see in this slide, they are based from the Al-Azhar philosopher Muhammad Abdu. You probably heard about him. So looking at 6 principles: understanding of Islam, role of rationality, leaving the judgment of others' faith to Allah, and reflection on Allah's creation, and then also the direct communication between a human and Allah, and the tolerance as the basis of a human behavior. So let's take these one by one. If we look at understanding of Islam, as teachers, and of course we're looking at this in terms of how it affects us as teachers and as educators. So فقد الشيء لا يعطيه. If you don't understand Islam, you're not going to practice Islam well, and therefore teachers in Islam are supposed to be role models. So you're not going to be a good role model to your students, and therefore you're not going to be able to interpret religion, curriculum, teaching methods, evaluation, everything that you do as a teacher from an Islamic worldview. And that's really the most important thing when we observe the application of Islamic philosophy in education. The role of rationality, or looking at the intellectual aspects of individuals and appreciating the human brain and rationality and what it could bring is so much emphasized, and really has a lot of implication in terms of what curriculum should we teach. So it's not only about the religious subjects, it's also about the natural sciences and other things. And there are so many verses in the Quran that actually stresses this so much, like أَفَلَا يُبْصِرُونَ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ, and so forth. So when we look at the third principle, which is leaving the judgment of individuals' faith to Allah, we especially in today's world, we live in a very complex world. We are surrounded by individuals who are not Muslims, and we as Muslims, we are different sects and so forth. So when we look at this from an educational perspective, it is really, really dangerous. If I am going to judge you by your faith, who am I to judge you? That judgment is only to Allah. I don't know, what's inside you. I don't know, on what basis, because the basis will differ. What I believe in might be a little bit different than what you believe in, and so forth. So fostering, living in peace and living in harmony with others, leaving that judgment to Allah is really very, very important, and especially important for teachers, because as a teacher, you should be objective. As a teacher, you should not impose your worldviews on others. As a teacher, you should respect diversity and respect others. And this is, definitely is very important for you as teachers to think about. Then when we move on to the third one, or the fourth one, excuse me, we are looking at reflection on Allah's creation nature. Islam very much emphasizes that, we should go beyond the immediate knowledge. Just knowing and understanding is definitely not enough, because to know Allah and worship Allah in the right way, you need to understand the universe. There's a verse that says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Why? Because they have greater understanding of the universe, of what's going on in the universe, and that greater understanding, leads them to know, oh, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. I just know a little bit of what's in there, so eventually, the more knowledge that you know about the world, hopefully will lead you to more understanding and more deeper faith, to be a deeper, faithful, Muslim. And anything that we do in terms of the curriculum, also as teachers, we should always foster that relationship and deepen that relationship between Allah as the creator and the students, and our students and our children, and so forth. So another aspect is that there is direct communication in Islam between individuals and Allah. So you don't need a religious authority between you and Allah to tell them what you need. So what does that mean then? And what are some implications for that? What it means is that there's no authority of one Muslim over another Muslim. All right? And teachers as well do not have that authority and control of their students. Even the Prophet was advised, that وَلَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطَرٍ. Therefore, as teachers, how do we, guide students? How do we instill those Islamic values? Just by being good role models, and forcing people to obey you as a teacher will not necessarily lead to that real obedience. Obedience is something that's internal, and it should come from the person, or him or herself. Therefore, definitely teachers should not look at themselves as controllers of students. Another aspect is that tolerance as the basis of a human behavior. Unfortunately, in today's world, we live in so many contradictions, and Muslims are looked as terrorists, looked as extremists, and so forth. And definitely that's not what Islam is about. Islam is a religion of peace. It's a religion of, it's a universal religion, so it's for everybody. Therefore, the Prophet was advised to, خُذُوا الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. So we as Muslim, we are advised not to hurt others in any way or form or shape. So as teachers, as educators, really having that tolerance and understanding of the differences that we have in opinion or in with others should guide the way that we organize our classrooms, we organize education, the values that we instill in our students, and so forth. Also, the medium, the way they communicate, the way of communication with others, that also should reflect tolerance, respect, and humanity or humility, when we deal with people from different opinions. So, thus, what's the when we look at the different aspects now, every philosophy we do this. We look at the purpose, the curriculum, the teaching methods, the evaluation, and role of teacher and learners. So when we look at the role, the purposes of education, the ultimate and main purpose of education in Islam is to know Allah and worship Allah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That's the ultimate purpose. So everything else should, in a way, directly or indirectly, lead to this aspect. Really, education in Islam is about creating individuals who are good Muslims, who are balanced in their life, who are, who observe Allah in this life, so in the afterlife they are happier. They would, reach to a happy ending. So developing all of the good, behaviors and feeling and ethics is very important.